Okay, we are live. Hello friends, I Joyashree Dey, project lead for the Story Project 13, www.tellmeyourstory.biz. Welcome you to the sixth episode of Gender Stereotyping series. I am privileged to have with us today Ragashree Dey, Dr. Sareeta Amrute and Dr. V. Padmaja this evening, and we are going to discuss women are bad leaders, women are emotional decision makers rather than logical. Tell Me Your Story calls for submission on the writing from Gender Stereotyping, a platter of workshop and masterclass on gender studies. Let me begin with introducing the panelists this evening. First, we have Dr. Sarita Amrute. Dr. Sarita Amrute is an associate professor of strategic dean at Person Learning School. She holds a PhD in anthropology from the University of Chicago. Her research centers on investigating data-centric technologies and their impact on society. Utilizing algorithms, technologies, and AI systems, both shape and social relation with a particular focus on the context of global South Asia. Her extensive body of research analyzed the various forms of labor and capitalism and emerge alongside this technology, examining how they perpetuate, reinforce, or disrupt long-standing colonial relations. She is also the author of the book Encoding Race, Encoding Class, Indian IT Workers in Berlin, which was the recipient of the Diana Forsyth Book Prize and the International Convention of Asia Studies Book Prize. Her more recent work looks into the practice of trust, safety, and security in online environments, framed as responses to surveillance media regime. Sarita was inaugural director of the Research and Data and Society Research Institute, where she founded the Trustworthy Infrastructure Initiative and co-authored the AI in from the Majority World Primer. Throughout her scholarship, she places a significant emphasis on race and caste as critical analytical lenses for understanding power dynamics within technological domains. Ma'am, welcome to this evening and
Thank
a very good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Our next panelist is Dr. V. Padmaja. Dr. V. Padmaja is affiliated with Ramaiah Institute of Management as Professor of OBHR and currently heads the Center for Leadership at Institute. Her 28 years plus of work experience include about 11 years in the corporate and 17 years in higher education, teaching various courses including leadership, knowledge management, talent management, human resource management. She is a certified DIS trainer and is passionate about training. She has conducted numerous training programs for mid-level and senior management in the areas of leadership, emotional intelligence, professional grooming, and etiquette, social entrepreneurship, networking for success, DFI, and other life skills. She was the recipient of the Best Professor in HRM at the Time Asia Ascent Asia Pacific HRM Conference, September 2022, conducted by World CSR. She is a life member of professional bodies NHRD, Bangalore Management Association and NIPM. She is also associated with the leading NGOs in Bangalore and is a regular invited jury member for business plans. At her personal front, she has authored a book titled Winter Always Turns to Spring, which is based on survival stories and narratives of COVID-19 pandemic. The book is published by Let's Author and was recently released in April 2023. Ma'am, a very warm welcome to this evening.
Thank you, Joyashree. Thank you. Tell me your story for having us on this wonderful topic on women as leaders. So I don't want to say bad leaders, but I'll say women as leaders. Thank you.
We are about to bust that myth. So, for that, I am coming to both of you with a question that how do you define and measure effective leadership and how do gender stereotypes influence this definition? Do you come across a statement like she is not a good leader or it's not her cup of tea, etc. in your personal or professional life both? So, tell me your story first, Sarita ma'am.
Sure. Thank you, Joyashree, for that question. So I think for me, I have worked both in the nonprofit sector and in higher education for many years. And what I've learned is that there's no singular answer to this question of what is a good leader. It really depends on what the goals and the ethic of the organization are. And as an anthropologist, there's always a cultural aspect to the question of leadership. So, a leadership style that works well in a fairly hierarchical organization is not going to work in a more flat, non hierarchical organization. So, I think for me, the key points of good leadership are communication, listening skills, and knowing when to make decisions, be authoritative, and when to step back. In terms of these arguments about women and leadership, I think there's a supposition that women don't make good leaders because they're indecisive or they're too emotional. But in fact, these days, I find that those aspects of gender discrimination and also discrimination around caste or around, in the US context, race, can be very, very subtle. So, in higher education, for instance, even though in my field, the social sciences, most working researchers are women, it still continues to be mostly men who are the known names in the field and receive the most citations. And I think what's very hard to get your head around is this isn't exactly an intentional process or the result of an intentional process. It's simply that we, as a global society, continue to associate authority and science and rational knowledge with men, even though we know that women are just as good researchers and just as good scientists. Maybe I'll ask Padmaja to pick up from there.
Yeah,
Sure.
thanks, Sarita. Joyashree, would you want me to take over from where Sarita has left? Shall I
Yes,
start
yes,
talking?
absolutely.
Uh, well, Joyashree, the topic itself is very interesting, which Tell Me Your Stories has chosen women as bad leaders and emotional decision makers. But before we jump into the details of women as emotional decision makers, let us first try to understand what does the Supreme Court have to say about gender stereotypes, because it's very important for us to delve into understanding how how people look at stereotypes, particularly gender stereotypes, and how it could be harmful in making our judgments and perceiving others, particularly women, since this topic is more related to women. So the post-pandemic, after the COVID-19 pandemic, the Supreme Court came out with a handbook to understand and fight and combat gender stereotypes, which would help the judges to make, decision making and writing much more effectively, which could impact the reports in their thoughts, words, and actions. So by and large, all of us get impacted by stereotypes. So that would so this report, released by the Supreme Court, would help remove the biases, particularly identifying the languages towards gender stereotyping, and therefore offering alternative words and phrases. For example, we most of us, by and large, um, are habitual in using very commonly, as very casual words such as, having an affair. So maybe what the Supreme Court says that, the alternative language that could be used would be a relationship out of marriage. Or say, for example, uh, a fallen woman. Why? A woman is a woman. So these are the words, or a housewife. Today, when I see students who come to for interviews, to our institute, most of them say my mother is a homemaker. So that word of housewife is now done away with, and people are getting more sensitized to using the word such as a homemaker, or something like a dutiful wife or a faithful wife. Why should a wife be categorized as dutiful or obedient or faithful? A wife is a wife, having her own sets of traits and characteristics. Having said that, the topic about women as leaders, well, we have seen that women have demonstrated, by and large, leadership traits such as being more effective in their communication, being more empathetic, being a keen observer and a silent listener, by and large. And we've seen professions such as teaching and nursing largely dominated by women. So, by and large, women have done well, particularly post pandemic. We've seen a lot of women leaders who have networked brilliantly to garner support, gather support, and help the society. But going by what Sarita says, I would largely agree that uh, considering the leadership positions, when women go for interviews, there's still some unconscious bias about not finalizing them. We still have to break the barriers. That's a fact. What kind of barriers? There could be emotional barriers, there could be our own personal mindset and barriers, family pressures. So there's still a long way to go. It's a long journey, but we are doing it. We are there. We are at par. We are doing it, and I think India is doing exceptionally well in terms of women in leadership. So those are my opening thoughts, Joyashree, which I thought I must talk about gender stereotypes and how does it impact and affect women in their careers, because by and large it could impact, a stereotype is something which uh, people rely heavily in their subconscious thoughts, and therefore it tends to create a lot of biasness, discrimination at workplace. It could also be discrimination at educational institutions. So sometimes we say, when we talk of stereotyping, when somebody belongs to a particular sect or religion or a caste, we tend to frame certain opinions, or men could do these particular tasks, or women are not suitable to do a particular task. So these kind of stereotypes could impact drastically at our workplace, which I think all of us need to consciously work to come out of these biases and then take conscious decisions of how to use our own judgments. I leave it there.
Absolutely. It's very important, like for women, how they are addressed, and that is somehow affected their mentally also and their work. And also today we have our third panelist, Ragashree Dey ma'am. For the short introduction, I want to speak that she is a professional with experience in civil service, corporate, chamber, and ministry. Her core skills lie in strategic planning, licensing, policy formulation, tie-up, branding, and creating USP. She is also a speaker and motivator in various forums. Wing Commander Ragashree Dey joined the Indian Air Force and served over a course of 15 years of service. Shouldered key positions at some of Indian Air Force's largest and busiest air bases. She left the service as a wing commander. She was one of the founders of Medicaid Ethos Private Limited in 2015, an enterprise she has been busy with ever since. She is also the mentor of Change of Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Yog. She is recipient of the BIET Ascent Award as the Women Leader 2022 Karnataka and is the recipient of 100 Prime Women Icon Award 2022. Ma'am, I welcome to you this evening.
Thank you.
Hello,
I'm so sorry
Commander.
at the outset. Let me apologize for the browser setting over here because of some technical hitch. I'm sorry about it. Thank you so much, and sorry for the delay.
It's okay, ma'am. We are just begin the discussion. That I want to ask you the same question. That how do you define and measure the effective leadership, and how do gender stereotype influence this definition? Do you come across a statement like she is not a good leader or is not her cup of tea? So share your personal or professional life experiences.
Uh, in services, I think when they took the decision of taking women officers, I think they were mentally prepared for the change. And because I was from the pioneer branch, I didn't find much of a difference in acceptance of women. Despite what was shown in Gunjan Saxena, which I don't think that is the way actually what we felt when we joined services. It was very, very welcoming, and I find the approach is women are emotionally much more intelligent. Okay, so therefore their approach was when we take a decision, the decision is based on how we look at all the perspectives, and therefore in an organization where diverse kind of manpower are coming in and we are all uniformly treated, having a women in decision making was a welcome approach as far as Indian Air Force was concerned. But when I stepped into corporate, I found the acceptance of a women officers in a women officer coming from a defense, that there I find some kind of a inhibition in accepting a woman who's coming from armed forces, because the general perception is women who are coming from service can only do two things: one, either security job or HR, nothing else. So that kind of a limitation, and they do not think the assertiveness that a women show is assertiveness. They kind of take it as being aggressive. So that is something that I found much more in corporate than in service. Ministry, I had absolutely no problem. I've been with ministry now for almost more than 12 to 13 years. I didn't find anything. It was very, very comfortable working across the party line. Absolutely. More so, they are much more welcoming as far as women who are educated and who want to make a difference to the society. So when it comes to this question, pertinent question as to women, are they the good leaders? I find there is nothing that stops a woman from becoming a leader, because if she can run a home, if she can bring up a child, and if she can bring up the future generation, why can't she run any establishment?
Absolutely, ma'am. And running a home is not a like cup of tea. It's a big deal. So she definitely can run the world. I am again returning to Sarita, ma'am. Ma'am, some believe the strength of women's decision lies in women's intuition. That's very strong in us women. So, what do you have to say about that phrase?
Sure, and I just wanted to say welcome to Ragashree, but also build on what Padmaja was saying before about gender stereotypes. I think something that's important to remember, especially in the corporate setting or also in the academic setting, is that it's not only men who hold these stereotypes.
Yeah.
It's also sometimes women in decision making capacities themselves who, in a sense, unwittingly reinforce these ideas about what kinds of roles women should take on in an organization. On women's intuition, I'm an anthropologist, so for me, that term encapsulates the tacit knowledge or the kinds of implicit knowledge that women have and is often not recognized. So I think it's fine for me, I don't have a problem with the term if we're using it in that way. But of course, everything is always contextual. Sometimes people can use that phrase of women's intuition to do exactly what Ragashree was saying, to say, oh, well, women's intuition is good for an HR role. It's not good for a technical role. I've seen that many times. Or it's good for a certain sort of technical role, but not a client-facing technical role. Or it's not good in finance, where you have to be assertive in a certain way. And for me, that term can really cut both ways. I think it's very important to pay attention to, because in fact, we'll talk later about unrecognized forms of leadership. And that term, for me, sort of encapsulates that idea.
True.
Okay, thank you. Padmaja, ma'am, in your opinion, how do gender stereotypes impact leadership development programs and initiatives? What steps can organizations take to ensure these programs are inclusive and challenge traditional gender norms?
Well, that's a very pertinent question, considering the fact that we're talking about women as leaders. I think the first step towards understanding this is building an inclusive climate and an inclusive ambience in the organization, where the management consciously takes a strong decision to have women at all levels, particularly at leadership positions. So, to start with, I think their mission and vision itself should talk about diversity and inclusion. Let's talk at that, whether it's a startup or whether it's an established firm. In fact, a lot of organizations have reworked on their mission and vision statements, talking about diversity and inclusion and providing equal opportunities. So, to build an inclusive atmosphere and to build an inclusive work culture, I think that's the right way of putting it. To build an inclusive work culture, one needs to walk the talk and believe that women should be given equal opportunities to occupy high level positions, and therefore start with effective mentoring and coaching programs, start with building meaningful conversations and developing and nurturing women in for leadership positions. start believing and accepting the fact that we must bring in more of transformational leadership rather than being more of a transactional leader. When you practice transformational leadership, you're trying to bring about a holistic development amongst your employees, and therefore if you're working towards an inclusive work culture, ensure that everyone is given an equal opportunity, an equal chance to prove their potential. And another important point, Joyashree, which I would like to make here, Sareeta and Ragashree. I think Ragashree will also agree with me. Let there be an equal number of representatives of men and women in the selection panel. By and large, when we see, when you're recruiting for a woman post, let there be an equal number of representations. Why should only men be sitting in the panel? Right? So let there be representatives of women in the recruitment in the panel, and therefore that could be a major change in the thought process. And another important point which I would like to make is provide ample training opportunities. Let everyone feel a part of getting the opportunity to grow and develop. Other things could also include a strong mentoring process, giving important roles to women, helping them feel included in all the roles, which includes technology, your dynamic setup of learning. Because a lot of places I've seen, I'm sure Ragashree has also echoed that same thing, and Sareeta has also echoed it in her earlier opening statements, that for certain roles sometimes it is difficult for women to get into those roles. And therefore one must have an open mindset of embracing everyone and giving equal opportunities to all, and genuinely help in building up their overall holistic personality towards occupying higher level positions. I've seen that in academic institutions also. Very rarely have you seen women at the top level positions. You look at the IIMs and the IITs, the directors, they're all men. So it's still I said it in the beginning, it's still a long way to go. Well, we are very fortunate. Our institute is headed by a woman director, Dr. Manasa Nagabhushanam, and we are very happy for that. But at the end of the day, we still have a long way to go for women to occupy high-level positions in academic institutions also.
That's absolutely true, ma'am. This is just the beginning, and have a long way to go. Ma'am, I'm coming to registration to you. I want to ask you that do you believe that men and women show very different behavior when they are making decision under stress or pressure?
Biologically, physiologically, men and women are tuned very differently. Men has a fight or flight kind of an approach, and that is genetically proven. That is how biologically a man is wired. Whereas women has something called tend and befriend. We have a nurturing tendency. Therefore, under stress, I think women are much better taking decision than men, because when it is a childbirth to finding any kind of a anxious environment, domestic responsibility, handling children, handling parents, handling your work, see the kind of daily life stress that a woman goes through in her work life.
The multitasking aspect.
Absolutely. The women at a point, even the way lateral thinking for a woman is much better as compared to men. Men can only have a single focus at a given point of time, whereas women have a capability of thinking multiple aspects at the same time. While I say this, I also say men take much more risk, and they are much more assertive in taking decision. Women are little reluctant. I have seen much more, because now when I am handling a health care establishment, I know surgeons, I find much more of male surgeons than women surgeons, not only because of the sabbatical that they take while in the profession, but also when it comes to a decision to do or not to do, the male surgeons are much more confident in taking a decision, right or wrong, they go ahead with it. But women are little reluctant. So what happens? They get judged professionally because of this. This is a different aspect. By coming back to your question, under stress, women are far better in taking decision is my take, because I have seen there was I'll give you a personal anecdote. I was posted in Air Force Station Agra, which is a 3,000-acre land, where there was a mosque, which was an encroached area into Air Force land. And every year the defense land, survey is done. So we noticed there is a mosque and there is a house which has encroached. Now it is Agra, and demolishing a religious structure is tough. But then we had to make, it is not because it is a mosque or a mandir or a church, but anything which is encroached into our land, into the defense land, it is not supposed to be permitted. And therefore, the male officers who were there were asked to undergo, various kind of negotiations with the civil authorities. Nobody stepped forward. No one. So I had taken this liberty of, I volunteered this. I went ahead and demolished the structure with the help of the civil authorities. So why I'm quoting this is a very stressful environment. It can flare up whichever way. But then, if the groundwork is done, women always go with in a planning method. Like they know that, okay, if I take this step, what is the next? It is like a recipe for women. Whenever they take a decision, they know how to reach at the end. But for men, it is the end. So that is why I say, when it comes to stress, women can think of multiple aspects before they take decision, and therefore women are better decision makers when it comes to taking decisions, and they definitely behave differently.
Maybe I can just add on there, if it's okay. Joyashree, you are on mute, actually. Shall I add a bit? Okay. Just in response to what Ragashree had been saying, the way I tend to think about it is that gender is, of course, a spectrum. So as Ragashree is saying, we as women, we're often trained to be a little bit more hesitant and not take risks. But of course, there are some women who really go full throttle. They're great surgeons. They're ready to go. And the same side, there are some men who are a bit more planning, more methodical, more careful. And so I think, as Ragashree was saying, one of the big problems is when the stereotype aspect comes in, right? We know that people are on a range, on a spectrum. We can identify certain gendered tendencies in risk-taking and action and leadership and decision-making. But in fact, we want to find the right leader for the right situation. Because not all situations require the same skill set. And the problem really comes in is when we discount women from stepping into roles because we make assumptions about how they'll act without having any knowledge of their individual predilection to base that on. I think that's a big problem. And then the other thing I think that needs to happen for transformation, in addition to mission statements and changing the organizational cultures, is we have to start valuing different kinds of experience and setting that equal to what we normally consider. So I'll give you a very concrete example. It's very well known in academic circles that, and I'm speaking from the US context right now, when an academic has a child, whether it's a man or a woman, in some universities you get a leave. So you'll maybe get 1 month to 3 months of maternity or paternity leave. And it's so well known that it's almost a joke that when men take paternity leave, they write one more book, right? So they're building their resume. Whereas when women take the same leave, what are they doing? They're taking care of the baby. So those sorts of things are so subtle and hidden, but they make a huge difference, because then at the end of the day, when we're evaluating two candidates, they may have the same background, same approximate age, everything, but the woman's background, her accomplishment will look lesser. So to Padmaja's point about having a woman in the room when decisions are being made, one would hope that that could change the conversation a little, and so that the comparison could be made in a fair way. But those things really have to change. And maybe I'll give one more example because it's related to work. I find that often women are asked to do roles in the workplace, whether I've worked in a nonprofit and also in the academic space, in both spaces, even in a nonprofit that was largely run by women, women are often asked to do a lot of what we call unseen labor. So a lot of mentorship labor, talking to the younger candidates, making sure they're settling in, all those sorts of things. That's very time consuming. Yet it's completely unrecognized, even though it's important. We do it because we think it's important. But nobody's going to give us a promotion based on that. So it creates
Yeah,
conflict of interest for us as women as well. So
true.
I think those sorts of activities need to be much more recognized by leadership itself. Leadership itself has to change in the way they
True.
evaluate people.
The way they think.
Yeah.
Taking a cue from that, Joyashree, if you may permit me. So I, apart from my teaching, I also do corporate training
Yes, Krishna.
programs. In a recent a program which I did for a large public sector, I wouldn't like to name the organization. We did a program in understanding what prevents, or in what way are women not equal to men. It was more of a trying to talk about providing equal opportunities. And you'll be surprised to know that women from across the states voiced the opinion, saying that we do all the tasks, and it's a large public sector. I would like to take the name. We do all the tasks at par with men, yet when it comes to a promotion, somewhere there's a barrier, there's an obstruction saying that, oh, you took a maternity leave, and then after 3 months or 6 months, whatever is the duration, sometimes women also undergo a trauma, if they've had some kind of a miscarriage, or an abortion, or a miscarriage, or if the child was not born properly. So if they extend their leave, then they're scared that their promotion will be halted, and for no fault of theirs. So sometimes they need to come out of their mental trauma. So, despite the fact that they've been doing the best of their contributions towards the organization, all challenging roles, they are actually trying to do the work life balance. It's more than the men. They actually go whenever they are called. Women are always there to combat a tough situation. So, I think the larger credit should go to the women force for holding the fort and driving down many initiatives. It's the women who are who are more willing to break the barriers, go out of the way, and take certain challenging tasks, because they really want to prove that yes, I can do it. Not for any accolades, not for any praises, but they want to prove to themselves and to their family members and to their own, being worthy of their own self-esteem, that yes, I can do it. So I think there we need to recognize and push the women and make them feel important. We all need a pat on the back, but timely pat on the back is important. And that is where the situation is slightly disheartening. Give them timely promotions, please elevate them, please recognize their strengths. The problem today is that women are very strong, but recognizing their innate strengths and allowing them to perform to the best of their abilities, I think that is the call of management and the leadership who are holding various positions. I think that's important.
Yes, ma'am. All that I can sum up that the success stairs for both men and women are little different, and for women they have to climb up two extra steps in the same path. So that's where the gender stereotyping lies, and we have to work for that. Sarita ma'am, I want to come to you about your book. In your book, Encoding Race, Encoding Class, you explore how IT workers' middle class aspiration intersect with their experiences as racialized migrant workers. How do gender stereotypes intersect with this aspiration, and how do they influence perception of women's leadership potential in global tech industries all over the world?
Yeah, thank you for that question and for looking at the book. I always appreciate that. See, the story of women in computing is a very interesting one. In fact, the computer itself, that was originally when computers first developed, mainframes first developed, that term computer was for the woman operator of the device. So the woman who is actually switching the plugs to make the computer work, she herself was called the computer because she did the work of computing. At that point, her labor was very much undervalued. It was almost a secretarial labor. But as computers became more and more important, that engineering job category, also raised its importance. And so increasingly it became seen as a lucrative, important role for largely men. So you can see here how women's history, their importance to the very beginning of computing after World War II, has been erased. Very few people know that story. Adding into that, the initial component parts of computers, the circuits themselves, were often being assembled by women because they could operate on these very small circuit boards, right? So women are everywhere in the history of computing, yet their labor is often erased or undervalued, right? And so when we look at the global tech industry, which has undergone so many changes in the last decades, we can see that the whole industry relies on a lot of immigrant workers and a lot of workers who are working transnationally. And many of those workers are not recognized. So if those of you are following the trials and tribulations of Amazon, Amazon just closed its to go shops where you could just go in and take the food and go, in part because the AI system that they thought was going to work very well did not work. So all of those shopping purchases had to be reviewed by human beings. And most of those human beings were doing it as outsourced labor in India. So here we have this intersection of both racialized forms of labor and gendered forms of labor. And it's very important to understand that sometimes one form of discrimination can hide another. We have to try to think of them together. So, in many ways, women have made entries into tech work because it feels like it's a safe job for women, it's clean. As Padmaja was saying, the major companies are still all run by men. So, we have to look at that and understand why that continues to be the case. It has to do with everything we've been talking about the way that it often seems for women taking a job might be something you do until marriage, or it might be something you do while married, but until you have kids, there's an expectation that your work is unnecessary. It's a nice to have, but not a must have. Or even if it's a must have, the main focus is still running the home, and this is extra or ancillary. And that kind of thinking just continues until people are making decisions about leadership based on all the things we've been saying up until now, these subtle forms of discrimination.
Yes, ma'am. And in this field, also in any leadership field, the status of women, whether she is married or unmarried, is greatly affected. Because if she is married, after marriage, she is taking a little differently, that she might be like a little rude or taking decision. She is not capable because after some time she has to go on to the maternity leave, so she shouldn't be promoted on the higher level. Padma, how to encourage into leadership development programs to mitigate the impact of gender stereotypes on individuals' self-perception and leadership potential?
How do you mitigate the stereotypes?
Yes, yes, impact of gender stereotypes.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that comes to my mind to answer your question is that every people who are occupying high level positions need to walk the talk. I think until and unless you believe in what you're saying and lead by example, your subordinates or your team members are not going to follow you. So you need to walk the talk and make sincere efforts to build an inclusive work culture so that everybody gets a prominent role in discharging their roles and responsibilities. Apart from that, I think sensitizing people towards gender, be it man or a woman, we need to we need to create that sensitization towards understanding and treating people with trust and with dignity. That is where sometimes the huge gap exists, because people are not able to uh, uh, give the due respect and the mutual trust which is expected at workplace. So create an ambience of mutual trust, respect, gender sensitization programs. You could do workshops and drive down various examples. If you were to ask me, the best of the examples could actually come from our own. I'm a strong believer of our Hindi films, So a long back when I was a student, I'd seen that movie Hum Hai Rahi Pyar Ke, where Amir Khan was given a task to complete a particular number of I think he was into some he had to complete some number of clothes for a particular order, and it was the women team who stood by him. He was running his own startup, and it was the women team who said that we are going to help you complete this delivery, and they all stood by him. They worked overnight, the entire night, and they completed the task for him. So I think it's your women, the women power, which will help your organization to go forward, moving forward, and and help in understanding that providing equal opportunities and building in a strong culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's very important. We are lacking today in building up DEI programs. I think it should start not at the organizational level. I'm sure Ragashree and Sareeta will agree. It starts from our own home, our own mindset. When parents tell us, "Stop! Don't play like a boy," or "Don't laugh loudly," that is where the entire problem starts. You're a girl. You need to take care of the house. Yes, of course, we will take care of the house, but we also want to excel, not just grow. We want to excel in all the fields. So I think it starts with parenting, it starts with schooling, and then moving on. We need to break all perceptions and grow and excel in organizations. So when I conduct training programs, I always give examples, but we should talk with example statistics. And Joyashree, research has proved that women are far more empathetic, far more adept and better in listening to the issues, and much more better in accomplishing tasks, as Rajeshri rightly said. Under stress, the best comes out of women when they are under stress. And I will say, we don't do Durga Puja just like that. We strongly believe that Durga is a Mata with 10 hands, and I'm sure all of us, there is a Durga in us. You look at our mythological stories and the characters, and we look at Sita Ma, we look at um, all our mythological characters. Everyone displays strength. Even Ravana's wife Mandodari, she displayed a lot of strength, and she stood on her virtues. She was the one who said, "Please, give back Sita to Lord Rama." So I think when our own mythology talks about and brings about the best of women, I think we should take those cues and move forward with strength and dignity.
Absolutely, ma'am. I'm completely agreeing with it. Next, Nagasri ma'am, can you share any personal anecdotes or experiences where you have encountered and challenged gender stereotypes in your professional journey as armed force veteran? How did you navigate this situation, and what lesson do you learn from them? Important.
Okay, since the question is specifically about armed forces, I'll have to list out some aspects, and then I'll tell you what I did about it. Though I said they are very welcoming as far as women induction was concerned, because there was a policy change and everybody wanted to show that, see, we are the pioneers to get women into service. But when we went inside, the senior lot was all very happy about it, because they are all going to make a difference in showing how they made a change by accepting the women into the armed forces. Whereas at the functional level, when it comes to, there is two categories of defense officers. When I say armed forces, there is an officer category and there is a non-officer category. So when the officer category is there, you would have seen in Hindi movies, there are a lot of jawans that are there. So these are all coming from rural background who are not used to taking orders from women. And for them, the first challenge that I found in service was they considering that women are inferior in handling leadership roles. This is not from the officer cadre. This is for people who are working below me that I found, because for them, I am a 21, 22-year-old girl giving orders to someone who is 50-year-old. And for him, accepting that is very different. It is like you cannot think of these kind of things happening in a corporate setup. But imagine here a 21, 22-year-old girl giving instructions to someone who has worked for some 20 to 25 years in the same organization, but now he has to listen to someone who's just about his daughter's age. Second is emotional fragility. Here, it is a two-edged sword. I find that women are emotional, but some of the women officers that I have found have also used this as a weapon to get away from difficult tasks which was assigned to them. So the fragility aspect, when 10% is behaving that they are emotionally fragile, the entire group gets branded as they are emotionally fragile. Then comes when there is any kind of domestic responsibility. Invariably, work-life balance, most of the women should know how to handle it. If you are there, men don't come and say that my wife has to go to the hospital or I have to take care of the child. Today, Meri maid nahi aayi. No man will go and tell this. But invariably, you will find a woman mentioning this. So the assumption that women are primarily catering more about their domestic responsibility than their professional responsibility, there I found an issue. Then, as both of them had spoken, both the speakers had spoken about inferiority in STEM fields, the bias that women are less competent and naturally not inclined towards science and technology. So when there is any role where there is a mechanical failure, or like say when we are flying, if there is a snag that we declare, it is invariably told that, okay, you have not checked it properly. Okay, it is because your knowledge about the systems are far less than the people who are working under you. Then comes appearance over competence. I have found women trying to overplay their appearance and underperform. Also, women who try to underplay their appearance and they try to perform. In the sense, what I mean is, I thought when I joined service, your uniformity in the dress, uniformity in how you look is so much so that you don't find a gender difference when you join. Because all of you are in juda and you don't have any kajal or any kind of jewelry, and men are all, crew cut and all that. So you look absolutely alike. But the moment you get commissioned and are inducted as officer, you should have continued like that. I have found a lot of women who join as officer later when they get commissioned, they try to overplay their looks. So what happens invariably, even if they are good performers, they get branded that just because she is good looking, she is getting her way.
So it's not about the looks. So it's not about the looks actually. It's about the strength.
No. But then the problem here is, if till she proves her mettle there. If she doesn't overemphasize her looks, first you show that you have substance. Then you do whatever, nobody will speak anything. But here are 20, but the age is such that it is an age where women would want to look good in any kind of setup. So appearance over competence, there was a serious issue that I found. Then limited career ambition. Anybody coming into service, I found the moment they have completed 1 year, 2 years, they want to get married. I don't know what is this marriage fixation with women. I have not found this, at least in this generation. I found at least girls. I am sure, Joyashree, I don't know what your age is, but I consider you to be a very young girl. So please, limited career ambition should not be your goal. First, fix your career. Don't just get employed just for a job. It is a career that you need to plan out. And that is invariably why when the promotion board sits, if there are 6 people and if there is a girl, they'll say, "Acha, ye to shaadi karke chali jayegi." Yeah. That is the kind of approach people have. And a lot of women have done that. Then comes lack of assertiveness, which I already mentioned. Then when it comes to sports and those kind of physical activities, women generally tend to back out because मेरा पाँव टूट जाएगा, मेरा ये हो जाएगा, वो हो जाएगा. I don't know why this has happened in service, but when they joined service, they knew these things are part of the game. And when 2 out of 14, 2 of them do this, everybody gets branded on this. In technical skills, in any case, I did mention about this. Now, why I mentioned these stereotypes and these kind of hitches that I found, how it made a difference, is when I reached a level where I can change the policy. When it comes to leadership, I had tried to showcase examples of women officers who have excelled. For example, currently there is a co-founder of Akasa Airline. I don't know how many of you know. Akasa Airline is run by 2 people. One of them is a service officer called Neelu Khatri.
Yeah.
And she was a logistics officer. And I have seen how she had handled during the time when they were posted to Leh. We get on ration a lot of chocolates. And this chocolate you cannot consume because there's huge quantity that comes there. So to keep the bunker warm, they would paste this chocolates across the bunker. And for a lady officer, imagine what all she would have her regular whatever biological phenomena that is happening, for her to stay in a bunker for 2 years. It is not easy. But then she is one person whom I found was extremely positive about whatever she, in fact, personally, I have interacted with her. She lost her husband. She had to take care of 2 kids. We both were posted in Palam at that time. And I have seen how leadership role, she is one of the epitome that I would anytime quote anywhere. Because from service to corporate, what she has done, from service, she joined KPMG. From KPMG, she went to Honeywell, and she was in New York. And from there, she started this, Akasa Airline. When it comes to emotional fragility, I had tried to project it that women are much more emotionally resilient. Yes, there are fragile women, but at the same time, they are much more resilient, particularly during Kargil operation. I was myself camp commandant, and I had to augment manpower from across India. And augmenting manpower across India and making them function. Those who have watched Kargil wars and those who have heard about Kargil, I was the liaison officer of Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa, who was the prisoner of war during that time. So to maintain discretion as to what to be conveyed outside, and when you listen to the stories of what he went through, how much to tell, how much not to. So these kind of pressure was there on each of us who were in the senior batches, that we are going to be the trendsetter. And how we behave is going to reflect on the generations that are coming behind us. Also, when we got married and when I had kid, all the 6 months leave was not there. There was no paternity leave. There was all this leave was not there. And in fact, for us, you have to be in the shirt and trouser till 5th month. Imagine every month I have to change my uniform because I can't fit into the same uniform. Trouser, 5th month pregnant lady, imagine what dimensions it would be. And for those kind of responsibility, and after my son was just 2 months old when I had to join back. So at no point did I give the reason of my domestic responsibility, because this pressure was always there that what I do is going to get quoted later. Then the STEM field, in any case, we had to prove every time that when we are reporting a snag, we will check and cross-check and check and cross-check to show 100% we are sure, so that they don't say that, "Acha, wo ladki hai, she doesn't know what she's talking about." So that kind of a pressure was there. Appearance over competence, I had to underplay it. Let me be very frank about it, because most of the times when you go into any kind of environment, either you are eulogized too much. The scales are so uneven that either you are overpraised or underpraised.
It's like a halo effect. It's like a halo effect.
Correct. Either there are too many people praising you or too many people criticizing you. The balanced aspect is very less. So over there, I realized that it is best to underplay your looks. So people don't look at you and people just look at your work. So till you prove your worth, just underplay your look, and that is the best way to move forward. And limited career ambition, what I mentioned, is be very clear what you want, I was a short service commission officer. I was expecting that permanent commission will come in. But by the time when I was in service, permanent commission policy didn't come. But we did all the spade work, and our appraisals were in the 9-point grade. None of us had scored anything less than 8.6, 8.7. That proved that we are all worth to be where we are. But however, when the PC came, all of us, the first 4 courses had already left service. But then nobody could say that the first 4, because of us, the rest of the courses got the benefit, whatever we got. And being assertive about whatever we want, service definitely made me much more assertive of what I need to do, because the kind of environment that you are in, you know how to create a circle for yourself, a support system for yourself, and how to bond with each other, how to professionally network. And that kind of a skill set is, that will make you much more assertive about what you want in life. Negotiation is another aspect that I found, that they feel that women cannot negotiate. Women just cannot negotiate. She can, because with her charm, she can make someone say yes, but her negotiation skills is bad. This is something that invariably I have seen, and I had given women negotiation skill training to equip them with tools and confidence to negotiate effectively as to how to negotiate. Because what happens, invariably they feel if you giggle and say something, they will agree. No, those kind of, this kind of a barriers definitely was there. And each and every step that I personally felt I had to, and also one example I need to tell here specifically, I have come from a very conservative background, so I have dressed in a particular manner. So swimming is mandatory in service. So for them, it is a 50-meter swimming and a 10-meter diving board. So when you're going to an academy, and when these tests are conducted, I am expecting that it would be just women when all this test is conducted. But there were male cadets, there were other male, and suddenly you are in the vicinity of so many people, and everybody is looking at you, and you are not an athlete that you are comfortable with that kind of an environment. You are just going there to do your test. So I managed to equip myself in a particular dress, where the swimming dress is there. Along with that, there was a lot of other thing that I wore inside. So I was asked this question as to what is this fancy dress that you have come in. So I said, so long as I swim and I clear the test, that is what it is required, right? So those kind of attitude to say what you think, the performance wise, you should not fail. How you project yourself should be to show that you need to maintain your femininity, but at the same time, just because you're feminine doesn't mean that you are any less. And we are generally culturally trained to think less is more. And I always say more is less. How much more you achieve more and more. And culturally we are trained to say, acha itna mil gaya na, khush raho. Nahin, itna kam hai. Yes. So I think I yeah. So these were some of the aspects, and I gave a couple of examples. I think that should wrap it up. Thank you.
Very well put across, Ragashree. I could imagine every statement that you said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I can just
finally I invite all of.
Go ahead, Joyashree.
Yeah, go ahead, Joyashree.
Okay. Finally, I invite all of you to discuss unidentified or unrewarded leadership in any field. For example, the decision taken by homemakers or women from lower socioeconomic strata who battle various evils and adversities and are not demotivated by the lack of recognition. Your thought, please. First, Sareeta ma'am, you.
Yeah, I'll take my final thought to build on what Ragashree was saying, because until now we've been talking about women being good leaders, but I think I'd like to talk about why it's good for women to be leaders. So for instance, what Ragashree was saying to the younger women to think about career aspirations, I want to say that it's extremely valuable for us to become leaders and think about being leaders and occupy those roles. First of all, as Ragashree was saying, it builds our assertiveness and our skill set. It gives a lot of confidence. I could really relate to what she was saying about being a younger woman and coming up. One of the great boons, I would say, of reaching a certain age is you can leave some of those concerns about looks behind a little bit and really step into being a strong leader. Another thing that's really wonderful about being a leader as a woman is that you can then open the door for others to come in. And in the last few years, I have been learning so much from not only other women, but also people who would call themselves non binary, or from Dalit women, especially in the tech world, who have so much to say about the issues we've been talking about. And also, very importantly, have sometimes a very different idea about what leadership it means as well. Is a lot of times we've been talking in this conversation about really about collaboration. How do we collaborate with other people in a diverse, either in a diverse corporation, in a nonprofit, in an educational institute, or in a military? And in fact, militaries around the world are some of the most progressive when it comes to including other people as full participants, even with all the problems. So, to my mind, I think we should not only think about reframing women as good leaders, but also making an argument for younger women to embrace leadership. It's a great way to grow your confidence and your career. And also, maybe the most important thing is, even though this time we've been talking mostly about women, we should always remember that there are so many other people who are also experiencing forms of exclusion. And we are precisely the ones who can open that door and make sure their ways of being leader are also considered in the conversation.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am,
Yeah,
what
well,
are your thoughts,
yeah, well,
Padmaja ma'am?
yeah, my concluding thoughts is that we just need the we have the strength, we just need the courage and to be more assertive, you know uh, be more courageous, put across your point. And if you would like to say no, just say it with all your strength. Don't just say a yes and do a task unwillingly. If you can't do it, just have the ability to say no. Use your head, use your heart, use your judgments effectively, so that you could perform as per the expectations, not just for your own happiness, but you would like to grow and you'd like to achieve more. As she rightly said, more is less. Keep aspiring for more. And if a woman is not able to manage her own aspirations, how would she manage the aspirations of her team members? I think that is where one needs to draw the line and understand what is it that she can do and what is it that she cannot do. And then voice your opinion, take a stand. Take a stand for something that is right. Try to be a role model. Well, everyone can't be a role model, but I would definitely, look up to someone whom I feel that I would like to, be someone like that. So try to be a role model. Try to look at someone whom you could learn certain skills and derive strength. And there's one point which I would definitely like to make, I'm sure all of us will agree, is that women are very good in networking, uh, the kind of communities that they could connect with, and the reach that they could leverage through networking skills is phenomenal. And a lot of wonderful tasks have been achieved. Women could do a lot of much more better tasks through their strong networking skills, which I think they score an extra point over men with regard to networking. So I think all these put together would make fantastic women leaders at the helm of the affairs in any organization or in any setup. So I think we are all there. We just need to believe in our strengths, believe in our skills, and get the support from our family members also. That's very important, getting the support and making you feel that yes, you can do it. That's very important for any woman to grow.
Okay, now
Yes,
now
sir.
you would want
Getting
me
a
to
support
have my
system
closing
is
thoughts.
like having a back. Yes, ma'am. Ragashree ma'am, please.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. Come again.
Yes, ma'am. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. You were talking about lesser privileged women who are not acknowledged. That is what your question was, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I think if you have read the book called Lean In, written by Sheryl Sandberg, where she mentions about how women are less assertive about speaking about what their achievements are. So I think we need to train our girls, we need to train women around who you find do not know how to communicate openly about their achievements and contributions to the society, in whichever way they have been contributing. And this could be from the maid of your house to anybody that you come across. That is one that I would say. And second, also, like what Padmaja mentioned, though she said women are very good in networking, but when it comes to domestic responsibility, they kind of limit themselves into that. And they have personal networking group, but professional networking group they don't excel as much as what I have seen. And I find men professional networking is much better. Therefore, their social climbing skills are much higher when we compare it with women. So, therefore, building a strong support network to amplify your recognition in professional segment is very essential. Seeking mentorship. This point was already mentioned by both Sareeta and Padmaja. Seeking mentorship and sponsorship from influential figures. When it comes to like you have to excel, then only these people will come forward to do that. Advocating for oneself in professional and personal setting, and pursuing opportunities for visibility in the leadership roles. These are some of the aspects that I think all these women who are in the segment where they cannot speak for themselves, and how we could train them to speak. This is how I would kind of influence them and inspire them to. I would use the acronym RISE, where I say that resilient. You should remain resilient with whatever challenges that you face. Take more initiatives in the setups that you are getting involved, so that people notice you, and stay strong, build strong support network. And last but not the least, that is the best way you can empower yourself. So the RISE is the correct acronym that I always use to motivate any women that come in my segment. That's all. Thank you.
Very well put across.
Thank you, ma'am. Those are very inspiring, and that's all I have taken from you. The points I have noted, that's very helpful, and I will surely apply it later in my life. Thank you, everyone, Padmaja ma'am, Sarita ma'am, and Ragashree ma'am, for the very insightful conversation and for your time this evening. I'm sure the other audience very much enjoyed to this evening. Tell Me Your Story calls for submission on the writing from Gender Stereotyping. A plethora of workshop and master classes are also available for aspiring authors. We hope to hear from you soon. Till then, stay well, stay happy, stay together. Good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
Joyashree.
everyone.
Thank you. Tell me your stories. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.